A Real Pain sees actor-turned-director Jesse Eisenberg present a straightforward storyline about two American cousins on a tour of their Polish history and heritage, which forces them to confront troubling aspects of their own lives and relationships. But before I get further into it, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and switching on notifications, as it really helps us out. A Real Pain is much more than its IMDb tag of buddy comedy would suggest. It's a road trip film that navigates a difficult subject matter, delivered through awkward conversations by its main characters, who are on a journey to reconnect with their ancestral roots. The main draw of this film is undoubtedly the main cast. If you're not a fan of Jesse Eisenberg or Kieran Culkin's particular acting styles, then you'd likely find it intolerable. However, if you do like them, then their performances here, as cliche as it sounds, are career-defining, not because of how they lose themselves in a character, but because of how close these characters feel to the actual actors. Of course, this makes sense in terms of Eisenberg, who has written many personal quirks into his character, as well as basing the story on his Polish roots. It's hard to imagine that he had originally pictured himself playing the character of Benji when he is so wonderfully suited to David. It was interesting to hear about the bizarre casting process of Culkin as Benji, with Eisenberg not ever having met or asked him to read for the role, which hints at an incredible directorial instinct or a risk that has absolutely paid off, most evident in Culkin's Oscar and BAFTA wins for the film. Culkin has previously proven himself apt in the delivery of comedic dialogue, such as in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and with dark undertones in the TV series Succession. This skill re-emerges in A Real Pain, but emanating from a far more grounded and relatable character. I say relatable, but the polite Brit in me could never criticize a tour guide to their face, so perhaps understandable is a better word, as I think most of us know someone whose entire personality is being confrontational. Benji confronting the tour guide is an example of the awkward conversations that I mentioned, which permeate the film. He is simultaneously the voice of doubt and reason, bringing up topics such as why a tour group going to a concentration camp needs to have first-class train tickets, and on the same trip also inspiring the group to enjoy posing in front of the Warsaw Uprising Memorial in a delightfully childlike bonding experience. Yet he is not just there to provide comic relief or instigate embarrassment. There's a backstory at play in which we realize that his provocative exterior is hiding, as the title suggests, a real pain. In truth, the title's relevance is delightfully multi-layered. It connects to their journey in understanding one of the most painful parts of recent human history, both in relation to the pain felt by the victims as a whole, and also to their own relatives specifically. Then there's the echoes of pain felt across generations, which bubbles over for Benji in that train ticket speech, a sense of responsibility in not forgetting the pain felt before. Furthermore, the title connects to each character's own private battles, as touched upon when the tour group first introduces themselves, as well as when Benji and David have their rooftop heart-to-heart, moments from which are hinted at throughout their subsequent dialogue. Plus, the title references the idiomatic phrase used when someone is being annoying or an inconvenience or causing frustration, in that they are being a real pain, something which deeply connects with the two cousins. David is trapped, desperately trying to avoid causing pain if he were to seek more from his very organized and scheduled life. He lives in fear of being disruptive, whilst Benji can't function without disruption, and misses the days when he could do so with David at his side. It's often a feeling explored by the coming-of-age genre, in which the older characters have this nostalgia for those carefree days before responsibility came knocking at the door. Benji continues to experience life with abandon, like a child, even down to how honestly he sees people. He makes many astute observations, for example about Marsha's loneliness. On the other hand, David has eradicated that part of himself in lieu of being a serious adult, as shown in his reaction to the memorial photo and his worry about being too forward with new people. There's so many examples of this juxtaposition which the film relies on to carry the drama of an otherwise, yes, haunting compelling, but simple storyline. It basically presents a snapshot in these two cousins' lives. The trip marks an important step in their reconnection, but ultimately it's only a disruption to the norm. There's no big changes to their character arcs, and the film implies things are unlikely to change when they return, even and in spite of the promises made at the airport. It's a sad but astute observation of adulthood that feels rooted in Eisenberg's own experiences, but is very relatable for many young adults, especially those who are living far away from their extended family. Funnily enough, on the topic of learning more about a culture, Benji's assessment of the tour is accurate to the film itself, which certainly lacks a connection to actual Polish people, and merely presents facts about Poland as if we, like the characters, are on a tour, looking at the country through the glass at a museum. I think this was done on purpose to illustrate the disconnect felt by many immigrants, specifically when trying to relate to a culture that they are connected to without having that sense of belonging. This feeling is as relevant to first-generation immigrants as it is to second, third, fourth, and so on, even to tourists who are trying to understand the experience of others within the span of a holiday, something that Eisenberg has spoken about in interviews. It feels like an insurmountable task. However, some of the disconnect was remedied by the beautiful cinematography, where many of the locations felt adored by the lens, which presented intriguing perspectives for the audience to observe. The cluttered compositions of the lived-in, busy towns contrasted the melancholy vacancy of the camp. There were also a lot of walking and talking sequences, which helped bring the audience along for the tour in a very active way. A notably overt addition to the film is the extensive use of Polish composer Chopin's music within the score. At times, I found it a little distracting, contradicting the inclusive effect of the cinematography and pushing me back to the feeling of being in a museum. However, I understand why they'd want to highlight this particular composer's work. Overall, A Real Pain delivers on its name, via character development, historical exposition, and even the tinge of bittersweet comedy. The acting is outstanding and the visuals are perfectly designed, leaving the audience with worthwhile questions, be it without answers. Thank you for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe and switch on notifications so you don't miss future videos, and comment below with your thoughts on the film. For more film content, feel free to follow us on Letterboxd and TikTok, links in the description. Otherwise, this has been Tea Break Film Reviews. My name's Michelle and I hope you have a great day.